I guess I'll just kind of put things in a nutshell here. Um, it, I guess reflecting on Steve's presentation, it's definitely that, I would say. I know I've been approached by many people around the country and even in the native country where they have said the same thing, and those who are really familiar with the Bible, and like crossing over the fact that what we're doing relates to a lot of things from the Bible to the beginning. And I just got to go back to what my mother used to say, when she used to take me outside, and she used to say, "Yeah, ine, yeah, she would say to me, like, do you hear, do you see, do you feel? All these things are real. No matter what anybody else says, this is real. And then just being reminded that, we're 70% water, and above Mother Earth is 70%, meaning that everything that's life, needs water, and we need water. And then, to see the United States government not put that as a priority, it doesn't even make the priority list. All the minerals make the priority list, for capitalism, but nothing for life. And then on top of that, you have the geologist reports coming out that 41% of our water in this country is contaminated. Then you have the propaganda again coming from these corporations that they're going to filter and make good water better than what it was, but yet it doesn't erase the fact that we're 41%, with not good water. And like a lot of these things come to mind. I guess I just wanted to share uh, with as quickly as I can, those experiences that I gain across the country. And what really affects me the most too is speaking on religion is the fact that we kind of lost. I think we've lost the common goal of what we are as people in this world. And in our religion, in a way of life, our identity takes us to that, and it seems like we replaced it with something else, and it's not a priority anymore. So I see that big conflict across this country because when it comes to our child being born into the world, there's really like no connection, really, really no physical connection to Mother Earth. And so a lot of our children grow up again with not having like personal ceremonies that relate to them as they grow into being adulthood, and how, when they have a child, it turns back that they have to teach their child how important Mother Earth is. And, going across the country, I run into that. So I try to emphasize to everybody that know who you are, because the big problem we have in this country is our identity, meaning personal identity. When we say like a personal journey to sacred unity, well, it starts with us first. We really need to know who we are. We really need to make peace with that. Because if we make peace with that, then when we come to the sacred journey where we meet everybody else, then we're all like on the same page. And I tell people to try to, work hard to reflect on themselves. And it's okay to admit, the pros and cons, because from there, only true healing comes. Like for me, being a victim of the past made me understand what my road was to the future and what I needed to do. And then, the ties of just, who God made me to be. And I mean, I find that really important in anybody understanding anything, especially in this country, where I think it's no different than the reservation, where it's just a big boiling pot, and there's no really consistency. There's no really, there's really like they give us like a false foundation, one that's an illusion, and it's all about money. It's all about for yourself, protect yourself, get what you can, teach your family the same way. Don't worry about others. This is the American dream. In the meantime, you know, when we talk about the poor people, it falls back to what we have as poor people is the earth. But now they're coming after the Mother Earth and by the minerals and destroying the water and everything that's edible, then what's going to be really left for the poor people? I mean, it's going to really be destroyed and gone. But even for them, they break themselves away from us, but they're no different because all of that's going to run out. So we're not going to survive. Both of us are not going to survive. And so it's really critical on the identity part because we all are indigenous. And I really learned that going across the country and meeting so many people, because it takes me into the part where I just talked about the water, that a lot of them don't seem to understand how water is the giver of life. life, the political side of things. I'm grateful that the Creator had given me an opportunity to invest some knowledge into what politics is and what it leads to. So I'm grateful that the Creator gave me an opportunity there, because I can talk for days and days, but what it really comes down to, again, that's really destroying from the north to the west, to the east to the south, all the four corners of this country of ours and the world. But for us particularly is that we come back to the 1872 mining law, because when I travel the country, I start realizing that like a lot of people don't know what that is. And a lot of people don't know that it's hurt, the American people, because the corporations have the ultimate authority when they're giving, from the government, these abilities to mine, to oil, and then to contaminate water, contaminate land, contaminate sacred sites, holy sites, and even not just for even not just for Native people, but other people have made areas a sacred place for them where their children have given birth. It's like it strips them from it and not allows them to tie any of their human value to it. So when we come back, when I look at the 1872 mining law, I'm sitting there like, man, there's no discussion in this country, within our government and within, as far as with leadership and I know that organizations, well, not organizations, but agencies that are under the federal government, they're not allowed to talk about this 1872 law, because that's the relationship, a strong relationship the United States has with corporations. And so that's going to have to come from the people. And I know that there's like people, organizations who try to have fight this, but they're suppressed back. And what's amazing about the stronghold is the fact that with all our allies and all the people joining us, that we're moving forward on this argument on 1872. So getting back to what Steve mentioned about our court case, man, it's like we come to the edge of the cliff, we're about to fall off, but all of a sudden something pulls us back. And I told the people up in Oak Flats recently, I said, because a lot of people are looking at me like, how do you feel? It's like it's over. And I said, no, it's not over. It's never been over. I said, the fact that, I was told in the very beginning that once we get here, and I want to thank every one of you that have gotten me here, is that the point is that once we get here, that means that the voice of Mother Earth is being brought forward. It's going to finally have its time. And so when I look at the bigger picture, we're now talking about the importance of the greatest gift God gave all of us. And that's Mother Earth. That was the first greatest gift that he gave, life. And we seem to have forgotten about it. And we have to, come back to that, because that's where the source of the power is at, and how we can really change the things, that are going on in this world, and even with human beings, because we're the cause of all of that. But anyway, coming back to how important water is, and how, just knowing that like people don't seem to really understand that. And then how the 1872 on the political side of things, the 1872 law, how that's really an evil law that sits in place. But as we joined forces and began to really question, just like what Steve just covered about our judges, it's crazy. And I keep saying that, that everything is already a monopoly. And when we don't go beyond or get outside the box and look at what we're living in, then it's hard for us to really improve it and fix it. Because like, again, I've been speaking to the kids in the university and sharing with them the importance of morals, and the importance of decisions they're going to make. And the questions they have is amazing. And it's about corporations. It's about sustainability and having a corporate life, having a life that's, really strong in religion that makes you happy versus one that strains you, that has a great demanding. And so, having those one-on-one conversations with a lot of the university students have been really echoing, across this country what a lot of our people are facing. But, I come down to my recent discussion with the University of Arizona, and they touch on what was being asked. Well, not asked, but kind of talked about, but it flared up more so. And when I came back and I spoke to ASU 2 weeks ago, I think, they got together and said, what's one of the questions can we ask, Mr. Nosie? And so the class, agreed on this one question other than other questions. But the one question they all had, and this was really something for me, because the question was, and it'll kind of throw you off as it did me, was that out of all these fights that we're in, what they asked me was, Mr. Nosie, can you tell us, are we settlers? And boy, just like a lightning hitting me, I just felt all of these students know that they're being lied to, know that they have an emptiness that sits inside them. And for a young African girl, emotionally to stand up and say, my family, my ancestors came from Africa and we were brought here, and I go back and I try, and my family try, but we don't know who we are. So we have to create somebody that we're not. And this is America. Because what you're saying is resonating to me, because it's opening up that pain I have here as a young girl that, who am I? What do I do? How do I become me again here? And he took me back to the four greatest gifts that God gave the world. And that's why I told her, I said, you have to go to the water. You have to touch the water. You have to feel the water, because that's what the greatest prayer that God gave you. Because in giving us this great gift, we all had responsibilities. And whatever this evil is broke us away from that responsibility. That's why we feel this emptiness. That's why we can't stand up the way we should stand up. And then when I spoke to this young white girl, she was Italian and part of French, but that's all she knew. She said, that's all I know. But we're being forced to, and we're being told that we're settlers. But on the other side of the story, there were you here. So they asked me again, are we settlers? I said, no, you're invaders. I said, no. I said, I'm going to have to tell you the truth, because America hasn't done anything to correct that yet. I said, so you can take my court case. And just like what Steve was saying, you can take my court case. Long story short, the United States made it clear that we are the wardens of America, and they would do as will with us. And I said, you got to really play into what they're saying. I said, because what they're saying is that they don't care about anybody else in this country. And the only ones that stands in front of them is the native people. But once they eliminate us, and in our spirit world, in our spiritual connection, then everything's free game. They have no concern for anybody else. That's why you see what's happening in this country. That's why, we see what's happening, because we lost that part. And what can get us there quicker and faster back is knowing the greatest gift God gave us and the purpose of it. And, and we're in that time. And last but not least, I think that, as Steve was saying in our court case, I'm sure you're all my friends out there. I'm sure there's probably nobody on the resolution copper side out there. But remember, our court case was filing for the injunction. And long story short, it made its way all the way around. But we're in the Supreme Court. The first time we got to the Supreme Court, and it hadn't been heard yet, but now Trump was moving the EIS. So we came down back to the district court in Arizona, and we filed, and we actually won. The federal judge there said, I'm going to place this injunction. Supreme Court, you need to hear this. You need to hear this case. Went back, injunction was in place. Then they didn't hear it. And then so we appealed, and then they didn't hear it again. Same thing, they walked away. So where we are right now is that, remember, I have our big case yet. The whole religious case is still sitting. It hasn't been thrown out. It's sitting in the district court. So we have the option to ask one more time at the district court that we want this injunction. But from prayers, the way prayers work, we got help again. And we were told, no, wait, do not file an injunction. You have the big court case pending. Because whatever happens in this next two, the one Steve was mentioning, the tribe and the environmentalists, is that they're going to move my big case, our big case. That's still pending. We do have federal judges that want to take this case. And that means that the first shot is going to be at the district court. So as soon as they decide on whatever happens in the two that's in right now, the Ninth Circuit Court, we're sitting there ready. And I'm like, oh man, talk about prayers, talk about people praying and like Steve was saying, this court case is tied to everything in this country. Everything. And if we get this hearing, that means for the first time, the United States government, with their cahoots, the mining corporation, will be cross-examined by our attorneys. And you talk about, like, if that day comes, you're going to hear evil at its best. Like we've been hearing it, but you're going to hear them, at their best, trying to convince this country that what they have been doing was right. But now I go back to the prophecy where they say good and bad will hit one more time. But see, it's not going to happen if we're not together. We have to be together. And I believe that what we see in this country right now, this of what we're doing is a bigger movement because it's the identity. It's the future of our children. It's the future of the ones yet to be born, what this place really is. And that's why we have to insert ourselves strong when it comes to the greatest gift that God gave all of us. And so this is a spiritual journey. We are the stronghold. And the stronghold comes from our people because it was a place of gathering of families and people that were discussing this ugly that was coming. And what are we going to do? And that's where the name is Zisco Zihi. That's where the people said in prayer, we're going to stand here strong. This is our place. This is our hold. This is where we will hold. And that's where the stronghold name comes from. It was family and people coming together to stand against what was coming to destroy who we are. And so I really feel like, for all of us, this really is the last chance in a spiritual way as humans. And from there, the deities, the angels, the gone people, all these holy ones will do what it needs to do. But we can't fail. We can't show that, we lost it. And that's why we're all trying to keep that blessed gift that God gave all of us alive. And that's what we're all doing. But our court case, our road does touch every part of this ugliness that we can fix. But we have to really be proactive. We really need to know what we're talking about. And we really have to be committed in the spiritual way.